Now let's set the record straight. There's no argument over the choice between peace and war, but there's only one guaranteed way you can have peace, and you can have it in the next second: surrender. Admittedly, there's a risk in any course we follow other than this, but every lesson of history tells us that the greater risk lies in appeasement. And this is the specter our well-meaning liberal friends refuse to face, that their policy of accommodation is appeasement. And it gives no choice between peace and war, only between fight or surrender. If we continue to accommodate, continue to back and retreat, eventually we have to face the final demand, the ultimatum. And what then? When Nikita Khrushchev has told his people, he knows what our answer will be. He has told them that we're retreating under the pressure of the Cold War, and someday, when the time comes to deliver the final ultimatum, our surrender will be voluntary, because by that time, we will have been weakened from within spiritually, morally, and economically. He believes this because from our side he's heard voices pleading for peace at any price, or better rev than death, or as one commentator put it, he'd rather live on his knees than die on his feet. And therein lies the road to war, because those voices don't speak for the rest of us. You and I know and do not believe that life is so dear and peace so to be purchased at the price of chains and slavery. If nothing in life is worth dying for, when did this begin? Just in the face of this enemy? Or should Moses have told the children of Israel to live in slavery under the Pharaohs? Should Christ have refused the cross? Should the patriots at Concord Bridge have thrown down their guns and refused to fire the shot heard round the world? The martyrs of history were not fools, and our honored dead who gave their lives to stop the advance of the Nazis didn't die in vain. Where then is the road to peace? Well, it's a simple answer after all. You and I have the courage to say to our enemies, there is a price we will not pay, there is a point beyond which they must not advance. Winston Churchill said the destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals. He said there's something going on in time and space and beyond time and space, which, whether we like it or not, spells duty. You and I have a rendezvous with destiny. We'll preserve for our children this, the last best hope of man on earth, or we'll sentence them to take the last step into 1,000 years of darkness.
Hello, guys. Welcome back to the Logbook podcast.
Hey, y'all. How's it going?
We'd like to thank our viewers and along with our sponsors, which is Common Denominator Network. So what do we got today, Dakota?
So let's start off today with the VA convoluted news. Since we never get straight answers, we're going to do our best to give them to you. Caregivers at the Minnesota Veterans Home in Hastings say a longstanding culture of workplace harassment, retaliation, and bullying has led to an exodus of workers and hazards for both residents and staff. Current and former workers say unsafe conditions are ignored, medical decisions are made by unqualified people. Imagine that. And the staffing levels are dangerously low, according to interviews and documents obtained by the Pioneer Press of Minnesota.
You know, I would just like to say this, that most veterans even know this. I know in this, like, veteran underground, almost like the E4 mafia, it's that it's not the veterans doing this. It's always the staff. Like the sexual harassment policies, there was more sexual harassment from the staff than any other veteran.
Yeah, there always is. And not to mention the understaffing and the long hours that are being forced upon the workers who are truly good workers.
Yeah. I mean, they are burning out fast. They really want to do a good job. But the thing is, you got someone in the corner who's just barely doing their job, skating by. And these guys are getting burnt out, and they can, with their education, they can actually receive better employment opportunities.
Better pay, better benefits, all the way around.
And they deserve it.
Yes, they do.
Senator Marco Rubio of Florida is urging the Department of Veteran Affairs to cut all ties with McKinsey & Co. The firm had agreed to pay nearly $60 million $60 million.
$600 million.
Oh, $600 million.
$600 million, yes.
To settle investigations into its role in helping turbocharge opioid sales.
Now, let's break off right there for a second. So, what is McKinsey & Co.? Well, I'll tell you what they are. They are a marketing firm, a marketing and what's the word I'm looking for? Starts with an A. Advisement, a marketing and advisement firm. So, and they work for the largest corporations as well as the U.S. government.
Johnson & Johnson.
Johnson & Johnson, Purdue Pharmaceuticals. They work for them as well, and they're the ones responsible for marketing all these opioids to veterans through Veterans Affairs. They planned this. They are the drafters of the actual marketing plan to get all us veterans hooked on opioid pain medications.
Wow. Rubio says in a letter to VA Secretary Dennis McDonough, McKinsey played a role in the opioid epidemic by exploiting vulnerable veterans. That's very true. No entity involved in the proliferation of opioid usage should be advising the VA on vital projects that impact how and when veterans receive health care. I got to be honest with you. I know this personally. You know, before the opioid pandemic, they would give me like 90 days worth of opioids, but never fix the problem. They used opioids as a Band-Aid instead of actually fixing the issue. So now they have to specially word things so they no longer get in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a shame. Just tell the truth. Okay. What else you got, Kevin?
So, a nurse at the Department of Veterans Affairs Medical Facility in Temple, Texas.
That's over by like Austin, between Austin and Waco.
Between Austin and Waco, yes. Sued the department Tuesday over its decision to offer abortion services.
Abortion was passed in September, by the way. Thank you, the Veterans Women Task Force that are not veterans. The lawsuit filed in a federal court in Waco, Texas, comes months after the VA announced the new rules, which represented one of the very few policies responses from the Biden administration to the Supreme Court's decision in June to eliminate federal rights to an abortion. And I do believe that a Texas senator, Cloud, that's over, or congressman, not senator, that is over, I think he's over like Victoria and Corpus Christi area, has a counter bill. And then also Senator or Congressman Morgan Luttrell has a bill to remove federal tax dollars from abortion.
Mm-hmm. The plaintiff, Stephanie Carter, an Army veteran and nurse practitioner working at the Olin E. Teague Veterans Center in Temple, claims in the suit that her sincerely held religious beliefs prohibit her from offering abortion services and providing counseling required by application of the VA policy. And that's what they're doing. That's what the federal government is doing to get to go around this whole overturning of Roe v. Wade. Is they're enacting policy in federal hospitals so that they don't have to follow state rules or state regulations.
The government's feelings overrule your rights. VA Secretary Dennis McDonough told reporters Thursday that the agency has been wrestling with disparities based on race in the VA benefits decisions and military discharge status.
Now, that's what I find interesting, is that they have to throw in military discharge status at the very end of that, which tells me it really has nothing to do with race, is that they're trying to get dishonorable discharges and bad conduct discharges, healthcare, over honorable discharges.
But, here's the thing, is that 70% of cases in an OIG report, in a government accountability, it was either government accountability office or the OIG report, showed that 70% of disability claims were mishandled. But then the VA hires these temp agencies in to balance that equity process. Here's the thing. Stop playing race and just hire the best person out there to do your job.
Right.
There are plenty of people that work in the VA, and I've even experienced that love veterans, are passionate about the way they do, but playing these firsty games, of first hires of certain races is absolutely disgusting.
Yeah, and also this victim game that people are playing is like, oh, he must be undervalued because he's a person of color. He must be undervalued because he has a bad discharge. Well, of course he's undervalued because he has a bad discharge.
I'm Asian American, and I'm just letting you know your whiteness does not offend me.
Does it?
No.
Would you like it to?
Later. In other news, Tucker Carlson has recently reported on the unseen footage of an event that took place at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th. Dakota, do we have that video?
Yes, we do.
These are the pictures you've seen of January 6th. They're familiar because they've been playing on a loop on every media outlet in America for the last 2 years. There's a reason for that. It turns out there's quite a bit of video you haven't seen. That video tells a very different story about what happened on January 6th. More than 40,000 hours of surveillance footage from in and around the Capitol have been withheld from the public. And once you see the video, you'll understand why. Taken as a whole, video record does not support the claim that January 6th was an insurrection. In fact, it demolishes that claim. And that's exactly why the Democratic Party and its allies in the media prevented you from seeing it. By controlling the images you were allowed to view from January 6th, they controlled how the public understood that day. They could lie about what happened, and you would never know the difference. Those lies had a purpose. They created a pretext for a federal crackdown on opponents of the Uniparty in Washington.
Our office wanted to ensure that there was shock and awe, that we could charge as many people as possible.
The first thing you notice from viewing the full video record of January 6th is just how many people entered the Capitol building that day. Hundreds and hundreds of people, possibly thousands, over the course of about 2 hours. The crowd was enormous. A small percentage of them were hooligans. They committed vandalism. You've seen their pictures again and again. But the overwhelming majority weren't. They were peaceful. They were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists. They were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th. Protesters queue up in neat little lines. They give each other tours outside the speaker's office. They take cheerful selfies and they smile. They're not destroying the Capitol. They obviously revere the Capitol. They're there because they believe the election was stolen from them. They believe in the system. Here's the man you've heard referred to as the QAnon shaman outside the Senate chamber. These are not rioters. These are people who wandered over from a political rally.
We will not let them silence your voices.
After the rally, they walked down Pennsylvania Avenue, where organizers had secured a federal permit to hold a legal rally on the grounds of the Capitol.
I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Once at the Capitol building, things
Peacefully.
began.
Peacefully.
Police officers fired tear gas into the crowd. A few at the front of the herd broke windows. Someone opened the doors, and many hundreds of others just walked in.
We're going to make that the story.
Of course, they did make it the story. And at the center of it, the single most famous person arrested that day was a Navy veteran from Arizona called Jacob Chansley.
Oh, that's a veteran.
Referred to as the QAnon shaman.
The so-called QAnon shaman. QAnon shaman.
Someone named Q Shaman.
Jacob Chansley became the face of January 6th, a dangerous conspiracy theorist dressed in outlandish costume
How many
who led the
Navy
violent
personnel do
insurrection
you
to
know are
overthrow
furries?
American democracy.
How many do we know
For
dress
these
up in
crimes,
ridiculous
Chansley was
costumes?
sentenced to nearly 4 years in prison,
That's-
far more time than many violent
That's not a
criminals have
shaman.
received.
That's a sailor.
What
in a
did
suit.
Jacob Chansley do to receive this punishment? To this day, there is dispute over how Chansley got into the Capitol building. But according to our review of the internal surveillance video, it is very clear what happened once he got inside. Virtually every moment of his time inside the Capitol was caught on tape. The tapes show that Capitol Police never stopped Jacob Chansley. They helped him. They acted as his tour guides. Here's video of
that walk.
Chansley in the Senate chamber.
That is a P-way
Capitol
walk.
police
if I ever
officers
saw
take
it.
him to multiple
He's
entrances
waiting on that
and
White
even
House
try to
block
open
and
locked
just whenever
doors
he
for
can.
him. We counted at least 9 officers who were within touching distance of unarmed Jacob Chansley. Not one of them even tried to slow him down. Chansley understood that Capitol Police were his allies. Video shows him giving thanks for them in a prayer on the floor of the Senate. Watch.
Thank you, Heavenly Father, for giving the inspiration,
police officers to allow us into the building.
Contrast the
Wow.
reality of what Jacob Chansley did in the Capitol building on January 6th, the indisputable facts recorded on video, some of which has never before been seen, with the depiction of Jacob Chansley that you've seen in the media for more than 2 years. He's a terrorist, they said. He should be killed.
Shoot him. Shoot him. Like, you burst into the United States, if he was dressed like bin Laden, would you have shot him?
Shoot him. Shoot him. It makes you wonder, who are the violent extremists here? Not Jacob Chansley. And the video proves that. But you would never have known from the media coverage.
The people sitting in the chairs need to be sitting in a jail cell.
Chansley is in a jail cell. He's been there for months. If he was, in fact, committing such a grave crime, why didn't the officers who were standing right next to him place him under arrest? Until now, no one could even prove that even happened. But it did.
Wow. How many times have we been told about being called terrorists?
Oh, how many times, verbally or in written form?
In written form. So they're quoting everything also in the 2017 report, Making Prevention a Reality on Veterans. They're absolutely terrified of us. That's why they want all these gun grabs over veterans over the VA.
Not to mention the 2009 DHS
But
report.
I'm sorry, that would be a sailor.
Yes,
Straight
definitely would.
You think it's Submariner?
He has to be. He has been oxygen deprived for some time. That is for sure.
A veteran group has called on the Pentagon to ban some Fox News personalities from being broadcast in the U.S. military facilities. An advertisement released by the Vote for Vets Progressive Political Action Committee online Monday slammed the conservative network's primetime hosts Tucker Carlson, Laura Ingraham, and Sean Hannity for knowingly pushing the claim that the 2020 election was stolen from, I'm scratching out the word, former President Donald Trump.
Right. So, stories like we just showed you here today, this group called, what is it, Vote Vets, they want that removed from government installations, military installations.
Dude, there's only like 5 people in Votes Vet, by the way.
Really?
Yeah. I've seen their stuff before,
yeah.
And it's just they never pick up their phones. You can never reach out to them. I'm telling you, it's just one of those charities that just funnel money.
All right. On a lighter note, North Korea's foreign ministry on Sunday called on the United Nations to demand an immediate halt to combined military drills by the United States and South Korea, saying they were raising tensions that threatened to spiral out of control. The drills and rhetoric from the allies are
irresponsibly raising the level of confrontation, said Kim Song-yong, Vice Foreign Minister for International Organization.
Is everybody's name just Kim in North Korea?
A very popular name.
Yeah, I got mine. So just the U.S. and South Korea say that exercises are in self-defense and are necessary to counter the rising threats from North Korea's ballistic missile and nuclear weapons programs, which are banned by UN Security Council resolutions. Last month, Kim issued a statement saying UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres has been extremely unfair, unbalanced on Korea's missile tests. That's all he said. Extremely unfair, unbalanced.
I am waiting for the equity pool here
Oh my
see
goodness.
if they buy it. That'd be hilarious.
I mean, when's the last time a representative from the UN went to North Korea to voice what they shouldn't be doing?
Correct.
There you go, Hot Bricks! How you like that, you fucking cocksucker? You have any idea how fucking busy I am, Hot Bricks? Well, fuck you! You want inspection? Well, inspect that, you butt fucking piece of shit!
Over 2 years into the implementation of Force Design 2030, the Marine Corps is in the midst of transforming our traditional models for organizing training and equipment, the force to meet new desired ends, and doing so in full partnership with the Navy.
So before we keep going, what is Force Design 2030? Force Design 2030 is a program in which they are trying to change the font of internal military documents so that the Marine Corps can read them more efficiently. That's what that all is. How many millions, no, billions of dollars is being funneled into changing the font of all of our documents so that the Marine Corps, so that they can read, so that Marines can read. And of course, it's the Navy that they're working with so they can learn how to read.
Just change it to crayon.
Just write it in crayon. No, yeah, just imagine that orders written in crayon.
That's perfect.
Yeah, right? Just like, I don't like the original stamp in blue. I want it in green. That's what we're looking at right now.
The significance efforts the Marine Corps has implemented a seismic change in shaping our force to increase lethal ability and resilience. Is what, changing the font from like Times New Roman to what?
No. So they want to change it from Courier New to Times New Roman.
So they can read it?
So they can read. No. The Marine Corps is fighting them, saying that we just learned how to read Courier New. You want to change the Times New Roman? How are we going to read it then? We just learned Courier New.
Marine Corps, yeah. The joke's on you this time. I am excited to see what happens on this one. All right.
Oh, well, without further ado, we have a wonderful guest that we'd like to bring up with you. He is the chairman of the Montgomery County the vice chairman of the Montgomery County Republican Party. And we'd like to introduce to you Mr. Jon Bouche.
Hi, Jon.
What an intro. Thank you, guys. How y'all doing?
Good. How are you?
Awesome. Thank you for having me on your show today. I appreciate what y'all do. What you're doing is very important. I think our veterans are overlooked quite a bit. Brian Talley's a dear friend. I like him a lot. He gave me his book. I'm going to read it pretty soon. In fact, what I told him I was going to do with it, I was going to read it to some people, and then we were going to sit around like a book club and go through it because he's asking for some feedback on it. So I think
read it to some Marines.
Maybe it's in Times New Roman.
Yeah, maybe it's in Times New Roman. You should find some Marines to read that.
I was about to say, you know, it's funny when you were saying that, it reminded me of the Toma law. A few years ago, we had a commissioner here that had violated the Texas Open Meetings Act. There's a few of them that did it, and they were indicted for it. And they used the money to hire Rusty Hardin, who's hugely expensive lawyer. And you can speculate where they got the money to hire him, like probably from the contracts, which derive from breaking the Open Meetings Act, of course, because it's a little circle of corruption. But anyway, when they finally got it to the courts, the Rusty Hardin was able to successfully argue that the law was written in such a way that it was difficult for the person of average intelligence to understand. And so he was able to get these commissioners off. And I'm thinking, you're celebrating because you're sub-intelligent. You're below average intelligence.
I'm too stupid to follow the law.
Oh my gosh.
That's a true story. Yeah, true story.
When you do that book reading, can you please reach out? Brian Talley is very dear to me because he was suffering and I was suffering. I had multiple surgeries done. And I remember watching Brian Talley's bill, and that's before he moved here to Texas. And I was sitting there just almost, weekly, just looking at the updates because Brian Talley's bill was going to save life. It was going to put pressure on the V, and it was going to save my life. And I knew that. So there's a journey that a lot of us veterans went through, and he didn't know about. But this lovely scar right here, this is because of Brian Talley. He saved my arm.
He knifed you?
Huh?
He knifed you?
Yeah, he did. No.
I should have gone with that story. That's it. That's more epic. This is Brian Talley.
Brian Talley stabbed
me. The knife fight with Brian Talley. See, that would have been a much better story. A knife fight.
Yeah, it's the new Chuck Norris joke.
Oh yeah,
Brian stabbed me, and then the cancer ran in fear.
Yeah,
There you go. Well, hey, I'm glad that they discovered that and they got rid of it for you. That's awesome.
It was amazing what he did for us.
Miracle. Brian is a walking miracle himself when
Yes.
you really get to know his story. And he's just been a real fascinating guy. And his eyes are kind of opening up to the political garbage because he's a very trusting person in this county. And, I've seen it. Look, I was a chairman of the Lone Star Christian Chamber of Commerce in this county. I led worship on a lot of the large church stages here. I played in a prison ministry. I started a nonprofit where we would go to the hospital and pray for and play music for the families that were going through cancer treatment for these children and at the Shriners Hospital. So I have a real heart for service. And when I was asked to run for office, as soon as I got into office, this little cabal out of Magnolia, they start these rumors. Jon Bouche is a child molester. He beats his wife. He's a criminal. And I'm like, you people are disgusting. And had I not had the reputation I did for 30 years of service in the community, it could have really destroyed somebody. So that's where I come from now. My thing is to be the paladin, the person who defends these people we recruit to run for office. And then they find themselves just attacked by all this garbage in this county. And so now, I started saying, look, and if you go back to August of 2 years ago, I gave a speech in front of the Tea Party that just brought tears to all the rhinos in this county because I said, from now on, if you do that and I can trace it back to you, I'm going to out you to everybody. Every traffic ticket you've had, divorce, whatever is in your background, I'm going to put it out there because people need to know what kind of person does this. And they're like, oh my gosh, Jon is threatening to dox us. I'm like, well, there's an easy way to stop it. Stop lying about people.
Yeah, it's public record.
Well, it's doxing public records is a lot better than lying and making up false accusations.
Yeah, I mean, dude, some of the things they would say about people. I mean, I came home one day. I told my wife when I was running for office, I said, they're putting out there in the public space that I got fired from my job as a security guard for being a peeping Tom and having inappropriate relations with young girls. And my wife says, you were never a security guard. I'm like, that's the part of the story you have the problem with, huh?
Everything.
I mean, people are just really disgusting. I mean, and they'll hide behind the cross too. We're Christians, and like, no, you're not. Christians don't do that kind of stuff. But hey, veterans have a place in my heart. Look, there's 24% of the Senate, the United States Senate, that are veterans. I don't know if you knew that. It's 97 members of Congress. 18% total. So there is good representation up there if you can get them directed in the right way. So I do appreciate what you guys are doing. Right now, Texas has 143 bills for the Texas legislature that focus on veterans affairs. And Briscoe Cain is sponsoring Bill HB 1894, which is the anti-red flag law bill, which will also affect veterans because that's what they're trying to do. So there's a lot of stuff going on with veterans in the state of Texas right now. So
yeah,
again,
I'm aware of that because of Senator Paul Bettencourt was trying to legislate as well, and that's a big one that I'm very keen on. But there's a jurisdiction line that is becoming blurred that we have to figure out. And the good news is that Greg Abbott is actually standing up to secure those boundaries, which I was actually pretty surprised on, that he did take that stand for us. He did contact me.
Greg Abbott is always going to do the right thing once he runs out of all other options. You can count on him.
Yeah.
So, but it is good that he is doing something about it. I give credit where it's due. I'm not one of those people.
Yeah, that's where it is. I take it at face value. And I love, I think what it is what you're describing is something that we know in the military, which is confirm but verify. And I think in the parties in particular, there's not that much of that going on.
Yeah, there's a lot of just trust at your word I see going on, and they're doing the one thing that everyone taught you growing up: never trust a politician. And
it makes it very confusing. It's just here are the facts, show the facts, and then kind of move on, and let's stop emotionally exploiting.
There's no need to validate anything that you say. There's no need to bring up evidence. It's just, hey, I'm a politician. I'm your representative. Trust everything that I say. And we're seeing that.
If you ever watch Texas Fully Loaded, we talk about that. And one of the funnest things we ever did was When Greg Abbott was out there saying, the border is secure, the border is secure, our co-host, Walter West, is on the border in the background, just showing them streaming across the border.
Yeah, we went there ourselves.
I crossed into Mexico undisturbed. Just big old wide open gate. Just walked right across it.
Yeah, we were with Wyatt Watson and Kyle Katie Sims.
At the
reminded me
narrowest part
of
of the river.
Back in the Gulf War, when we were over there, and they had the minister of misinformation for Saddam Hussein was saying, "We're winning everything," and the Marines are behind him. You know?
Oh, Baghdad Bob.
Yeah, Baghdad Bob. Yeah,
Baghdad Bob.
That's what it reminded me of when I got Abbott out there announcing the border is secure, and Walter West is streaming him in the background, just coming across in droves. You got to know you're lying, you know.
That's great. I mean, it's like they were pulling the buses right in to Mexico, loading them from there. We saw the tire tracks. We saw where it looks like they even buried and got stuck at one point.
And then there's this town hall meeting going on at the time that we were there, and
Sheena
Rodriguez is sitting there talking to him. You want to see the border problem? Walk outside. You'll see the buses
right
going
now.
Right now. Go walk outside.
Now. And she gave the time, the location, and the ETA upon their arrival, so you could see all of them. And they're just like, no, thanks. Like they really took it seriously.
I start to bristle a little bit when somebody's running for office, and the first thing to do is they hide behind their veterans credentials. And we have a guy here in the county, he's just really dishonest, and the first thing he always leads with is, "I was a graduate of Annapolis," you know. And he can be a veteran, that's fine. Jeffrey Dahmer was a veteran, you know, David Berkowitz, Gary Ridgway. I mean, some of the worst serial killers in history were veterans. It's not a wash everything clean. But when I worked in the corporate world, I can tell you this. True story. I had a little fun with Marines at the beginning, but I would say I'd look through all the applications. I would pull out all the Marines, and those are the people I would interview because they got stuff done, and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
So I loved hiring the Marines. Some of the best employees I've ever had. So you know, I'm not a fan of it's more about what you do. It's not. I'm a veteran. Yeah, but you're advocating for red flag laws, and you're calling Jesus a fictional character. So I have a problem with that, Dan Crenshaw.
Yep.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to curse on your show.
No, go for it. I have a little bit against eye patch personally, and that's a good point. You know, I was taught this, and many veterans are taught this: is the military adds something to your character, but it doesn't take the initial character away, and that's very important. And the thing is, there are bad apples because that's why we have, other than honorable discharge, general honorable discharge, and dishonorable discharges.
Yeah, there's not just good and bad. There's in between as well.
Well, yeah, it's just like the public. I understand. But do you remember when Dan Crenshaw went on viral video, went on Twitter all the way across the world for his confrontation with that young lady at the Tea Party here? You remember that?
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay, I was the guy holding the mic for the young lady.
Oh.
If you go back and look at it, I'm the guy holding the mic. And she just asked him a simple question. She quoted him in context and asked him that question. And he said, "Don't you question my faith," and got really nasty with her and kept just going on. And she was kind of shell-shocked. And I'm standing there. I said, when he finally shuts up, say, "I didn't question your faith. I just quoted what you said." And when she did that, he was like, didn't know what to say. You know, you can go watch the exchange. He like froze, like, uh-oh. And I'm like, I'm not going to proxy debate this guy. But I'm going to tell you something. He is very thin-skinned. And I was at a town hall meeting that he was hosting or whatever. And after the meeting, he was very kind of arrogant and cocky the whole time and real, you know, kind of a smart ass, really.
Got a bit of a Kenneth Copeland complex. I'm seeing this now. Mm-hmm. So.
And then after the thing was over, he walks over to a table where people were shooting video, and he taps on the table and goes, "Joe, get that?" And he turns around and walks out. I'm like, what the hell is this guy? You know, I don't know. I just don't like that. And people started painting Morgan Luttrell in with him. And I had lunch with Morgan Luttrell one day at the Honor Cafe, and he sat down and he goes, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh man, hey, you talked to Dan Crenshaw lately?" And he goes, "Yeah, I just talked to him a little while ago." I said, call him back, tell him to shut the hell up about Marjorie Taylor Greene and Lauren Boebert and fixate on the psychos. And it's a target-rich environment. Why is he picking a fight with the Freedom Caucus people? What the hell is wrong with this guy? And so Luttrell is a guy that I like, and I like Luttrell because he is not a polished politician. He really wants to do, seems to me like he really wants to do what's right for his constituents. He seems to really want to be liked. At the first debate he had, he was the only one to actually answer the question. So they asked him a question, and he answered it. Everybody else wanted to talk about other stuff and just deliver their prepared speeches. And afterwards, I went and told him, you seem very capable. I like your resume. You actually were the only one that answered the question. And, I'm going to be keeping an eye on you, man. And after the vote for McCarthy, the first phone call I got Monday morning, Monday morning, the first phone call I got was from Morgan Luttrell. He said, I want to let you know why I voted why I did, and want to let you know I'm available, which I thought was
we went to the town hall, and
I saw you.
Yeah, he let me speak first. And I gave him all of those issues, and then boom, phone call. And he's like, I got this. He actually removed masks out of Veteran Affairs, by the way, is another thing that we've said, but we actually have recordings where the head and the director of Veteran Affairs is fighting against Morgan Luttrell, what he did.
And the House Committee of Veteran Affairs to keep masks on in the VA. And for what purpose?
Yeah.
It's proven. CDC already said they don't work. So
But I'm just saying, Morgan, so far he's kept his word. He puts a bill out there for me and Mr. Paul Gunderson, who to me, he's ready to go. And I could not be more proud of him. And then the phone calls that I've been getting constantly, how he's keeping up with me. He's making sure that I don't lose hope. I mean, I've never seen someone do that. And it is a shame that everyone lumps him and even Wesley Hunt in with Dan Crenshaw, because even Concerned Veterans for America didn't sponsor Dan Crenshaw, but they sponsored Morgan Luttrell and Wesley Hunt. And Wesley Hunt's team, I love them. They're amazing too.
Yeah, and I think Morgan Luttrell is a great model for who everyone should have as a representative. This is his first time in the House, and he is from the area that he's actually representing, so he knows the people of this area. And how many people can actually say that? Yeah,
and he comes back to listen to what we say, and then he takes it up. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I've always been like a big believer in term limits for all public offices.
I think Morgan would be fine with term limits. He doesn't really seem comfortable in that position anyway. He seems like he's serving, and I do appreciate that. But, one of the things that my job as a Christian conservative grassroots activist here in the reddest county in the nation, here in Montgomery County, one of the things I have to do constantly is, you guys are military people, you know what the Honest John was, right? Remember the Honest John? The Honest John.
The Honest John.
The Honest John was one of the first battlefield rockets that really didn't have a directional system and targeting system. They just kind of point it in the general area of the enemy and shoot it off, and who knows where the hell it would land. And that's kind of how conservative grassroots people are, because they get fired up about an issue and then they just start flailing about, and there's a lot of collateral damage. And so when Luttrell took money from Adam Kinzinger, everybody went nuts here and said, oh, he's a rhino, backstab, blah, blah, blah. Went off. I said, time out. He is a guy trying to find his way through there. So if you go after him this way and alienate him and radicalize him against you, the only people he's going to have in his ear are the bad people. Right. So let's not do that. Let's give him a chance, make our voices heard, and give him an opportunity to do the right thing.
And did he give that money back?
I'm pretty sure he did, but we can't find where it went back. But you know what? Listen, here's the deal. If you start going after politicians by where they get money from, we'd have to empty DC. I watched your thing at the beginning here. We are talking about the January 6th footage. And I got to say, from my part, after that was over, when they erected the fence around that with the barbed wire and put the guards up, I thought finally they put all these bastards in jail. But that wasn't the case. It's not what they did. I thought finally, but that didn't happen. Now, in the aftermath of that, I got hit on Facebook today because I commented on a friend's page that he posted about the January 6th footage, and I said, the January 6th Select Committee was either incompetent in their job for not reviewing all of the evidence. So they were incompetent because they didn't do their job, or worse, they were egregious and neglected to put forth the exculpatory evidence they had for political reasons, and so they should be shot.
Yeah.
And they're like,
it is treachery. It definitely is.
Absolutely. I
mean, they're like, John, you can't say that. They hit me on Facebook with a warning. I'm like, so anyway.
Well, it is. It is. They swear to the same Constitution that we do. They have the same rules as we do. And something like that undermining due process, the Constitution needs defending. And you know what? We still swore to it. So I 100% agree with you. They can easily spill our blood.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for sure. But can you tell us a little bit about your experiences within and becoming active in the Republican Party?
Yeah, sure. Back in 2014, 2015, I was leading worship in some of the big churches around here. And I'm a musician. I'm the lead singer for Johnny and the Spinsations. If you want to look that up on YouTube.
I have looked it up. And actually, I have not got a chance to listen to your songs. But I saw the look of it. You look like a bit of like a rockabilly group.
We do a lot of 50s, 60s, Elvis, Beatles, and all that fun stuff. You can see my studio behind me. I got all my musical stuff set up from when we rehearse and stuff over here, keyboards on that side. This is my office / storage room / workout room / music room / the whole thing.
The everything.
The man cave.
So where all the magic happens, right? So I was doing that. I really wasn't super political at the time. And then they started to talk about building a highway past my house because I lived off of Robinson Road. If you know anything about Montgomery County, Woodlands Parkway.
Yeah, I know where that is.
On the west side is Woodlands Parkway. On the east side of the freeway, it's Robinson Road. And so when they were going to expand that would have effectively put a highway past my house. So I got a little excited about that. And I really started dipping my foot into the political scene to see what was happening. And then I learned about this group. Our county chairman now was part of this group that they showed up at the polls in 2014 and impersonated the Tea Party. They just they knew the Tea Party had a lot of power. So they show up at the polls with shirts that say Tea Party on, passing out voter guys saying, here, vote for the Tea Party. And they were on the front page of the Courier because the Tea Party people were pissed about this identity theft that happened, right at the last second. So that really bothered me that we had that sort of dishonesty going on in the county. And by the way, one of the people, like I said, doing that was our chairman, our current chairman, and his wife. So I decided to run for I wanted to get involved. So I reached out to my precinct chair who wouldn't return my phone calls. So I thought that's odd. So I started knocking doors and asking, do you know who our precinct chair is? Nobody ever heard of this person. So I decided I'm going to run against this precinct chair. She'd been a 34-year incumbent. And I knocked about 500 doors and nobody even knew who she was. So I beat her horribly to become the precinct chair for this area. And that's kind of, as they say, that's when the fight started, because here's this Christian conservative guy trying to actually make the party mean something and live up to something and not just be a social club. Because the way it was being run before is you had a 89-year-old chairman who'd been in office 55 years. And his whole thing was he would walk in and say, okay, Kim, I'm going to make you the chairman of this, and Dakota, you be the chairman of that. See y'all later. And nobody'd ever meet and do anything. It was terrible. And meanwhile, we're losing ground across the state, and the state's turning blue. And I got a problem with that. Have you heard of Operation Lift?
No.
Okay. You know what Project Blueprint is? Project Blueprint.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard of that, but I don't know the details.
They used to turn Colorado blue. And they did it basically overnight from a deep red state to a blue state. Well, they took that Project Blueprint and they repackaged it, named it Project Lift, and moved it over to Texas to turn Texas. Now, Hillary Clinton got, I think, 46% of the vote or something when she ran in Texas. So it's pretty scary. We're getting towards a tipping point.
Yeah.
Project Lift stands for Local Investment in the Future of Texas. So in these nonpartisan races, these Democrats will run, they'll get a foothold. your taxes, 90% of your taxes are controlled by the school boards and these local entities, these nonpartisan races. So that's the plan. They get in there and then they get a foothold and then they start gaining ground. Our Republican Party was just oblivious. It had been a little social club forever. They didn't do anything. So we started trying to change that mentality and really build up the activists here and the awareness and educate everything. And what we found in 2018, when we show up at the polls, here comes our chairman and his wife and that little cabal out of Magnolia again. They show up at the polls this time with a brand new PAC, guys, and they call themselves the Republican Voters of Texas. So they're stealing the Republican Party brand name now. And they're saying, here's our candidates. And by the way, our chairman's wife is a political consultant. So this is her candidates, her clients. So it's a major conflict of interest where they're handing out a voter guide saying, here's the Republican voter guide, Mr. Voter. And we're saying, no, it's not. The Republican Party does not endorse in primaries. It's not true. But, you know, again, when you get the money and you're that corrupt, you can just mail out to everybody. So this is my story of my activism. I'm fighting for election integrity. I'm fighting against the politically apathetic here in the county who just look around and see which group has influence and steal their identity right before the election.
Oh, wow.
And then the lag time when you're trying to say they're not really the Tea Party or they're not really the Republican Party, Mr. and Mrs. Voter, you know, the votes are coming in and they can lie their way across the finish line and say, hey, I won. Now what are you going to do about it? I'm in office.
Same tactics they were doing during the first Bush presidency. Where I can't remember. It was someone from the Washington Post, I think it was, like the editor from him. And he was actually hiring leftists and making them dress up like Klan members and go to Bush rallies, showing that the Klan supports Bush Sr.
You know, we actually went to the Democratic National Committee during when they had the presidential debate here, and we actually I met Caitlin Bennett. She's adorable, but that was my first time with Tulsi Gabbard, and her team actually came out and spoke to me. And what it is that
was pre-party change too. Yeah,
and you know, the people there were, I would say, Republicans coming in that weren't from Houston, and then there were buses of these kids and teenagers and young adults just from everywhere. And the thing is that there were Democrat protesters there that were protesting the changes they want in the party, like Democrats Against Abortion was there. And I remember talking to one of the girls. She said, these people that are coming in the buses, they don't represent us. And we are Democrats. We're Catholic. We're against abortion. And they came in and tore up their signs. And I think they became Republican that night.
Yeah.
Not even Republican. I think they just became independent.
Yeah.
Well, election
more conservative
is hugely important, and you know, we're trying to get to that here in Montgomery County. And you know, one of the things I mentioned earlier is every time you call these people out, they go, "We're all Republicans. We're all Christians." Well, no, Christians don't act like you do, and you're certainly not a Republican when you're in the primary election, joining arms with Democrats. These people, the Republican Voters of Texas PAC, endorsed some of the same people the Democrats endorsed in that election. So, you know, and then the general election in 2018, we're standing out there fighting for Ted Cruz against Beto, and they're right across the aisle working against every single Republican from the executive committee in a nonpartisan race. And they're endorsing some of the same people the Democrats are endorsing. So it's a problem. So what we've done now is we still the conservatives control the majority of the county executive committee. So we're actually suing our chairman right now. We have a case before the Texas Supreme Court because we show up to a meeting. The way these civil society is supposed to work, if there's an issue that's going to be debated, you show up, you debate it, and then you have a vote, and you respect the vote, correct? Mm-hmm. Our chairman says, nope, I'm nullifying that vote, and I have an attorney, and if there has to be a lawsuit, then I'll do a lawsuit. And we're like, what the hell? So he has done this over and over. So the majority of the party calls a meeting. He calls a meeting on the same day at the same time in a different location, takes his 19 or 20 people, the other 65 meet at someplace else, and he pretends like his is the legitimate meeting, and rigs the agenda so you can't show up and vote against anything in his meeting. and any business that he don't like, he just pretends like it didn't happen.
And this is within the Republican Party.
I'm sorry?
This is within the Republican Party.
Yes, and it's because his wife's business. This is how it's a conflict of interest. In fact, in the last election, guys, one of our county executive committee precinct chairman was holding up a sign that said the Republican voters of Texas has been condemned by the Republican Party for dirty electioneering. That is a fact.
You see, this is why as veterans, the post 9/11 veterans more so have trouble trusting any kind of political party. And you know, we know that the Republican Party likes to grandstand on the veteran community, saying that they are the party of veterans, much like the Democrats say that they're the party of the teachers union.
Well, our chairman wrote our precinct chair a letter and said, you know, basically, I'm going to take legal action against you if you keep doing this, even though she was telling the truth. And he copied a lawyer outside, not the party lawyer. And so as the vice chair, I asked him about that. It's like, did you consult with our legal counsel before you did this? He said, yes, I did. No, he didn't. I talked to the lawyer. No, he didn't. I said, did you consult with the Republican Party of Texas? Yeah, I did. Gives me the name of somebody who's not an attorney. I mean, this is ridiculous. So we've gone through the Republican Party of Texas now, and they said the county party needs to settle this. And if y'all can't settle it, then you need to sue the chairman. And here's the number of a lawyer to do it. So that's where we are now. So it's going to come back to the Republican Party again. It's a circus. Now, they did do a mediation, by the way. They did come down and do a mediation. And Brian sat through the mediation. And during the mediation, I told Chairman Rinaldi, I said, look, if you don't release the report for this mediation, I know it's supposed to be confidential, but I know Brian, he's going to go out to the public and lie and say that we tanked mediation, we were unreasonable. And I said, so if he does that, will you give me this letter? And he said, yes, I will. So sure enough, when it was over with, Brian did exactly what I knew he was going to do, sends an email out to the entire county saying how we were unreasonable and attacked him and et cetera. So then we got the letter from the mediation team, which says, the problem in the party is total failure of leadership by Chairman Brian Criss, who seems entirely disinterested in fixing it. And the precinct chair side, which is our side, was very reasonable and wanted to settle this matter amicably.
Gosh, he just pulled the victim card.
Wow.
He pulled a Meghan Markle.
Well, this is the problem. These people can't be trusted. And so I talked to the U.S. Pastors Council guy the other day about this for a while. And he said, well, as Christians, can't we all get together? I said, I don't think they're Christians, because you will be known by your fruit. And quite honestly, if the devil worshipers had a voting block in this county, these people would be burning a cross on your front yard. That's who they are. They're politically apathetic, just whatever it takes to win an election. So it's sad, but that's what we're fighting against. And that's why I do what I do, guys.
Yeah, I think it's amazing, because I noticed that, you know, we're in Harris County, unfortunately.
I'm known in Harris County too. I get calls from Harris County. Help us. I'm like,
yeah, they have this
battle here, you know.
They have this military partnership committee.
That's what it is.
And I've been going for the past couple of months, and I've noticed how detached they are from what is actually going on. That yes, they wrote bills in Texas, but one was an ROTC, a JROTC.
Yeah, they're in there discussing JROTC. They're not the military.
That's not a military issue. That's an education issue.
Yeah,
and that funding comes from the schools. And hiring someone with military experience has nothing to do with federal funding. And military and veteran issue has to do with federal funding. And then when I approached them and brought all the bills that really need to be passed, it's like it blew their minds.
I'd like to share something with you guys, if I may. Yeah. I don't know how much time we got left, but
we got time.
I kind of want to share a screen with you. This is the Republican Party, Montgomery County Republican Party website. It's got all kind of amazing information on it. We have legislative alerts, so people can keep up with what's going on in the legislative session.
Oh, that's crazy cool.
Legislative alerts there. And then we started a video series that I think everybody across the state could use. What is a county chairman? Because a lot of people have no idea what their authority are, where it comes from, how they're put in place, what's the process to deal with corruption, ignoring rogue county chairs, what are the dangers and consequences. We have all our stuff. We have election judge training. We have a prayer request section
Wow.
because I think it's important to be a praying party. So,
And you have a find my precinct chairs because we can't even find
Yeah,
our
we can't find ours anywhere.
who represents me? Find my precinct chair. Donate. So the website is mctxgop.org.
Yeah.
mctxgop.org. You can subscribe to. We have an amazing newsletter that goes out. I mean, it's just a lot of work that we've put in to make sure that people have a great resource for everything they need. Now, while we're doing all this, mctxgop.org. And while we're doing all this, our chairman is working against us, sending out newsletters saying, don't support these people. All we're doing is getting people registered to vote and getting them to the polls, holding training, holding events. That's what we exist to do. And our chairman's little faction exists to undermine us. And so this is why it's important that we win. And it's important that the Republican Party of Texas
sabotaging you.
The Republican Party of Texas has a couple of rules, 8N and 8K, where it says they assert the authority to remove a chairman from office for dereliction of duty. We turned in a 126-page report to them documenting the dereliction of duty of our chairman, and they said, sue him. So when it comes back to them, I think the Republican Party of Texas, if the courts say we're not touching it, there's, I think, a dozen complaints against us and before the Secretary of State about our chairman, who is illegally reporting precinct chairs. What he's done is he didn't have a quorum. He didn't have enough people. So he just started sending in the names of random people to the state to say, here's the precinct chair now for this area, for areas that were already filled. And he goes, oh, look, now I have a quorum. Now I have a quorum.
You're supposed to go through an intense interview process. I know one of my friends is a precinct chair, actually a few of them. And that's something I do like about Harris County Republican Party is their interview process. It's pretty thorough. To make sure that their views aligns with true conservative values, and they test their character. It's not an easy process just to sit there and say, okay, here you go. That undermines.
It has to be your Republican Party in a blue city. I mean, kind of
that's very dangerous.
Yeah.
Well, we're working hard, and again, these people are really trying hard to undermine us all the way. Our chairman put out in his newsletter that Jon Bouche committed fraud, conspiracy to commit fraud, and embezzlement. He put that out there, which is just total defamation. So I'm probably going to get around to suing him after some of this other stuff goes off. It's just the stupidity of these people. But that's a struggle going on right now is if the Republican Party of Texas doesn't enforce their rules, they will have created a dictatorial system at the county level all across the state of Texas.
Yeah.
If the courts are saying we're not touching it. And the Secretary of State says we're not touching it. And the Republican Party of Texas says we're not touching it. You have open primaries where Democrats are electing are having a say on who the Republican Party leadership is in the county, which is stupid. Or in our case, you have 3 corrupt commissioners or other politicians that pool all their money to buy the county chair, which they then use to entrench power even further and hide behind the Republican brand to get reelected. So this is the fight we're in. Now, we have a lot of people. We have God has been good. We have a great team here. We have great attorneys. We have just principled people that are not going to just stand down and let this happen.
Yeah.
But your prayers would be appreciated.
Yeah, definitely. If there's anything that we can do for you, please let us know. I believe this. We have a good. We know the owner of Blend Bar down in Conroe area,
in the Woodlands,
Woodlands area, and it was very amazing to me that after they lifted the mask mandates for him within 2 weeks.
Yeah,
it was supposed to be 2 weeks.
They had it for 2 weeks. And they lifted mask mandates, and
it's a cigar bar.
It's a cigar bar, so it's just like
a hole in
wear
your
a mask.
Yeah. But they were, Montgomery County has been really cool. They have the largest population of veterans, and here in the state of Texas, if you're disabled, Montgomery County does something very special. It doesn't matter what your disability rating is, you don't pay taxes on your houses. And that's something very special that Montgomery County does.
Yeah,
one of the most impactful veteran experiences I've ever had was when I was in college. I was taking a military history course, And MB Etheridge came to speak to my class. You know who MB Etheridge was?
Mm-mm.
From Huntsville, Texas. He was the second most decorated military person in World War II.
Oh, so he's underneath Audie Murphy?
It's Audie Murphy.
was number one, and MB Etheridge was number 2. And he came and talked to our class. His call sign was Little Beaver. He was landed on the beach at Anzio. And while this little man was standing there talking to me, he said, you know, I remember at night the sniper shooting down off of the cliffs at Anzio, and I could see the bullets passing through my men. And the tears just started running down his face, and it just broke my heart that this soul had endured so much in his lifetime, and he relived it every day. And so that was very impactful for me.
That's crazy. Well, thank you very much for really sharing that story, because I'm actually going to go look it up, because I feel pretty stupid not knowing that. And but I just want to say thank you. I noticed that during the election, because we did some door knocking and stuff like that, is that with the veteran community, they were really polite to the civilians, but whew, they came after me like, are you serious? Do you really think these Republicans will do anything? What message would you encourage veterans to get involved in you know, to believe in the Republican Party again?
Well, you're going to win this battle to save this country, not in D.C. It's going to be one dinner table at a time, one house at a time, one street at a time, one neighborhood at a time. Our veterans took an oath to, you know, protect and defend the Constitution of the United States, and that all starts with their own neighborhoods. So we need good people to take a stand and do the right things the right way for the right reasons, and have the courage to do that. And you will find that you have people like me and others who are willing to stand with you, but you can't just have this feeling of helplessness. I have that feeling of helplessness against DC. You will hardly ever hear me. The most I've ever talked about DC politics was probably on the show today. I don't talk about it a lot because I think it's a lost cause. But I do think I can make a difference in my neighborhood at the city council. That's why I serve on the Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District Board, because water is a big issue. Everybody needs water, right?
Right.
And I wasn't happy with some of the corruption I saw going on there. So I jumped in and did that. So have the courage to stand up and do what's right. But I think, look, God speaks to all of us in a little different way, I believe. And for me, it's through peace. I know that when I pray about things before I make a decision, God gives me a peace about it. And usually it's confirmed as to why he gave me a peace about it later, and I'm able to know that I made the right decision. So I would just encourage veterans to remind themselves of why they served, and to understand that the battle right now is being done on paper and not on a battlefield, and they're stealing your home from you, and it's not just the tax and spend Democrats, it's a print and spend Republicans too that are doing this. So get good people in office and support them. And the last thing I would say to them is, we make a big mistake as grassroots people, guys. We make a huge mistake. We fight so hard to get these people elected, and then we stop talking to them. And we just say, go ahead, you got it. You know, charge the machine gun, you got it.
Yeah. Morgan Luttrell at the end of his town hall, when he was asked, what can we do to help you succeed as a congressman? He says, beat me up. That's all. Those were his words.
I mean, man, he wants to communicate. Morgan wants to be liked. You can tell. And I like that about him. He wants to do the right thing. But that's my point is, if you bring up Luttrell, which is what I said earlier on in the show, if we're not talking to them and supporting them and praying for them and saying, hey, here's why I think this is a better decision. Tell me what you're hearing. You have a different set of eyes. I equate it to being a boxer in the ring. He's in the ring. He's getting punches. He's dodging punches. There's a corner man watching. He has a totally different perspective on what's going on. He understands some technical aspects, and that's kind of where politicos like me are. And then there's the audience who are seeing what's going on. They have a totally different view of it also.
Oh, yeah.
So for me to ask him, what are you seeing? Here's the way I see this and why I see it this way and the logical consequences if we don't do it this way. Morgan, what are you seeing? And that's a much different approach than you loser, you voted against, that's a much different approach. And so I think that's what we need to do is support these people and have them get involved because we need them.
Yeah, people are really quick to turn on the person they voted for as soon as they do something they don't like, instead of,
I'll tell you my own experience with that. I mean, look, I make Ronald Reagan look like a Teamster. I loved your speech at the beginning of the show, by the way. But when I got on the water board, one of the things you hear about all the time, and you guys have heard this tagline, no more taxpayer-funded lobbying. Have you heard that? This is the number one legislative priority in Texas. I was one of those guys screaming that. And then I realized something. When you do that, imagine, like the Woodlands is a great example. Imagine the Woodlands Development Corporation sends all their lobbyists to Austin to buy politicians and say, we want to build a highway through the Woodlands. We want to keep them from incorporating to control their own destiny. We want to do all that. And they got their lobbying team up there. And so a group of people in the Woodlands then go to their city council or their Woodlands Township board and say, hey, we want to send a lobbyist to Austin to stop them from destroying our neighborhood. You go, nope, can't do it. It's taxpayer-funded lobbying. So we paint ourselves in a corner with this. So when I got on the Lone Star Groundwater Board, we had 21 lobbyists working against us. And I'm saying, well, I don't mind going to Austin and arguing this, but 21-1 seems kind of unfair. I'm not an attorney. So we got a legislative consultant and everybody lost their mind over it. I'm like, well, okay, Republican Party friends, I could stand there before you and say, hey guys, I stuck to my principle. Sorry, your water bill tripled, or we can fight for you and advocate for you. I think this is a trap we're running into with this taxpayer funded lobbying thing. And I've seen it over and over. The big money corporations buy the politicians, they put them in office, they lobby for what they want, and then we're screwed. And the only thing we can do, because I can't go afford a lobbyist by myself, the only thing I can do is go to my city council and say, hey, our community doesn't want this. And they go, sorry, there's no taxpayer-funded lobbying. You're on your own.
Yeah.
So it is a trap. There are unintended consequences. We need to start thinking a little deeper.
Right. Well, I will say this, Concerned Veterans for America will be hosting Morgan Luttrell's next town hall in April. And if you want information, if you have any friends, Concerned Veterans for America will be announcing that they are going to have professionals fly in and teach professional lobbying to help people with their grassroots movement. So if you know anybody, please have them contact the Logbook and we'll get that information to you.
Get it to me. I'll get it on a calendar too.
Yes.
Fantastic. Also, and speaking of events coming up, this weekend, March 11th through the 12th, the Sacred Birth Symposium
in Austin.
In Austin. If you're a female veteran and you're looking to make some babies, get yourself on up there. You can get 33% off with the coupon code VETSAVE33.
Yes. And I will be personally attending this event, so I hope to see you female veterans there. Jon, thank you so much for coming on and keep us updated. I totally enjoyed tonight. Actually.
Yes, this has been a great, fantastic interview.
I hope to actually that this impacts a lot of the veteran community to actually get involved. Remember, guys, the front line, as Jon said, he drew the line. The front line starts at home. Get involved in your community, and it's truly a blessing. You'll find a lot of healing in that too. Because I tell you what, I personally go out and I speak at community events, and the onpouring of the people is astounding. So get involved, you guys. And
I would like to say before I go, I'm a realtor also. If you need help buying or selling property in Montgomery County, I'd love to help you with that. And if you want to get involved politically here, my number is 281-907-3989, 281-907-3989. If it's a real estate question, if it's a political question, I'm happy to help with any of that. Give me a call. I'd love to talk to you.
And
dang, Jon, you already got all the vets living in Montgomery County. You trying to get the rest of them
actually,
now?
Jon,
we're going to be welcome.
On that, I would like to pin your information to the top of our page because Montgomery County is very sought after and also has the highest female veteran population, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we can help. Do you assist in VA home loans and stuff like that?
Yes, absolutely. Well, I don't assist in the finance side, but the houses I sell, I do help people that are using VA loans to get houses or people that are
Yeah.
selling them to get people with VA loans. Yeah. I know
Awesome.
about that.
All right. Well, we'll make sure we'll pin that onto the top of
Thank
the
you.
page, because
Absolutely.
there's a lot of people out there that don't know what they're doing, especially with certain realtors. I know it was confusing for us in the beginning, but eventually we got to someone who was actually military, and that
Yeah.
helped a lot.
It did quite a bit.
So, but I'm glad that you know that. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you, John, for joining us, and we'll bid you good night.
Take care,
God
y'all.
bless you guys. Thank you.